taken together with the proposed capital extraction and the lack of structural protections in the deal to ensure the continuation of Income's social mission, cumulatively, they pose a risk that MCCY judges not to be acceptable.
Will any action be taken against those responsible for misleading the public and the government?
There's no question of misleading.
So now we know about capital extraction. This is a very important condition of any financial deal. And I'm surprised, I'm shocked.
Mr. Leong shouldn't mischaracterize what happened. MCCY is not confident that the proposed transaction would not affect the ability of the co-op movement as a whole or of Income itself to carry out its social mission. First, we find it difficult to reconcile the proposed substantial capital reduction soon after the transaction is completed with Income's representations to MCCY during the corporatization exercise that it was aiming to build up capital resources and enhance its financial strength. As I had explained, as part of that exercise, Income had sought and obtained an exemption to allow it to carry over a surplus of $2 billion to the new corporate entity. The proposed capital reduction runs counter to the premise on which the exemption was given. If not for the ministerial exemption in 2023, Income Co-op's accumulated surplus of some $2 billion would have gone to the CSLA after being wound up, to benefit the co-op movement in Singapore as a whole. MCCY has not seen any arrangement within the present transaction to account for the estimated $2 billion surplus that was carried over to the new corporate entity due to the exemption. There is no clarity on how this sum will be directed towards advancing Income's social mission. Second, MCCY is not satisfied that Income will be able to continue fulfilling its social mission after the proposed transaction. There are no clear binding provisions or structural protections in the deal to ensure that Income's social mission will be discharged. It is also not clear what Income might do after the capital extraction, for example, to adjust or trim its insurance portfolio, and what impact this could have on policyholders. NE has stated that it intends to maintain Income's social mission. MCCY accepts that NE is making this commitment in good faith. But MCCY is not confident that NE's intentions or the assurances Income gave earlier to MCCY can be upheld. We had known earlier that the proposed transaction would leave NE as the minority shareholder in the new entity, with a minority of board positions and no ability to nominate the chairman of the new Income entity. On their own, these factors would not have caused MCCY to object to the transaction. However, taken together with the proposed capital extraction and the lack of structural protections in the deal to ensure the continuation of Income's social mission, cumulatively, they pose a risk that MCCY judges not to be acceptable. As such, it is the government's view that it is not in the public interest for the transaction in its current form to proceed.
MAS knew about the capital extraction plan by around mid-July. I'd like to seek a few clarifications with MAS. First, what was MAS's assessment of this plan? Second, was MCCY aware? Third, why didn't MAS share more information about the capital extraction with MCCY earlier? Thank you.
The information received by MAS to perform its regulatory functions is generally not shared with other government agencies, and at that time, MAS was not aware of the MCCY's considerations when MCCY issued the Section 88 exemption, and hence it did not link the proposal from Allianz with the exemption that MCCY had provided earlier. And as the MAS team were still doing their technical assessments at that time, they did not surface the details, including the capital reduction plans, to the MAS board. And before the 6 August Parliament sitting. And it was only after the 6 August Parliament sitting that the MAS team that was assessing this matter saw that incomes or this plan to optimize the capital could be relevant to MCCY's views on the proposed transaction. And that is when MAS then decided that there were grounds to share the information with MCCY and that it was appropriate for MAS to do so.
Now, given that the need for more capital was the basis given to justify the corporatization of income, and then again subsequently to justify the sale of income to Allianz, which is in direct contradiction with the plan to reduce capital, will any action be taken against those responsible for misleading the public and the government?
There's no question of misleading. The deal on its own was priced properly, appropriately. The terms were put up. And as I mentioned, even after the capital extraction, the financial viability, the capital adequacy requirements and ratios would be satisfied. That is the framework in which this was proceeded with. And NE and Income, as I also explained, believed in good faith that this strategic partnership would strengthen Income as an entity to allow it to compete in the insurance business with the benefit of a partner like Allianz. We have a different view of that for reasons which are not associated with the financial viability or sustainability of the proposal. So there's no misleading as far as this is concerned.
Based on Minister Tong's statement, it seems that it was MCCY that was ultimately caught unaware. And I understand that the proposed urgent bill scheduled for Wednesday is meant to, in part, remediate this lapse in intra-government communication. Nevertheless, I wonder what this means for the reputation of MES as a reliable channel for government sentiment, for potential future deals that would require regulatory approval. What of other deals where different agencies or ministries other than MCCY may have relevant input?
MES takes its reputation, international reputation, very seriously. And this is the reason why we want to handle this matter in an open and transparent manner, coming to Parliament to pass the amendments to the Insurance Act, and to do so with urgency, provide explicitly a provision for the minister in charge of MES or for MES to assess an application like this based on non-prudential related considerations.
This is about information given to Singaporeans. For the last few months, we are of the impression that the information given is all that we have. So now we know about capital extraction. This is a very important condition of any financial deal. And I'm surprised, I'm shocked, and I'm very unhappy today that this important condition is not being disclosed to the Singaporeans when we are all discussing about this deal. So whose responsibility it is for this, not disclosing this information? Can the government give a commitment that it will pursue responsibility with regards to this? Maybe the company and all that, because it's a very important condition for the financial deal.
We have to understand that the proposed capital reduction is a proposal from Allianz. It is not something that MES has approved because, as I mentioned repeatedly, the deal is still subject to MES regulatory approval. So, would MES consider this proposed capital reduction in its overall assessment? The answer must be yes, because this is part of the proposal. So Mr. Leong always reminds us that he has more than 30 years of experience in the financial sector. So I'm sure Mr. Leong would agree with me that as a regulator, it is only right that we assess the full proposal, including this element within the proposal.
Mr. Leong shouldn't mischaracterize what happened. I explained it in some detail in my speech, and I hope that you will not mischaracterize it by suggesting that information has been withheld. On 6th August, we were here, we explained why we believed that it is important for Income to have the ability to find and make arrangements for a partnership. But as you know, the transaction was not approved, had not been approved, is being considered. We then got information from MES. We shared information. And as you heard me say earlier, this is how the government works. We studied the information carefully, went through, understood the transaction and its impact, understood it from the financial perspective, understand it from a social mission perspective. And then after coming to a view that it would not be in the public interest for this to proceed, we had to decide what's the best way to deal with this. So the first available opportunity, we've come to Parliament.
When I talk about responsibility, I'm actually talking about more when Income make the announcement. Are they withholding information? Because we Singaporeans are all debating this deal, you know. If this capital extraction is included right from the beginning in the deal, this information should have been made available to all Singaporeans. Thank you.
You know, Mr. Leong, you've been working for longer than I have been in the financial sector. You know that this is an arrangement, this is a deal, and the parties submit proposal or plans to MES, socializes them with MES. You can't expect this to be then made public to everyone. Income has obligations to its shareholders as well. And this is a step that happens after the transaction is completed. They haven't even applied to approve the transaction. So I think, Mr. Leong, be circumspect about making allegations that parties, whether government or Income, could be more open or withholding information. Because there is a due process to how this is done. And you don't go out there and produce information about a proposal when the transaction has not even been approved. So I hope Mr. Leong sees it in that perspective.